Okay, let's do a little review of operations. So operations means, usually in general, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So let's just remember the basic idea here. For addition, subtraction, try to think of a simple example that makes sense to you. Usually temperature makes sense to people. You know, what would I do if these were temperatures? So for example, if it is 50 degrees and it gets 5 degrees warmer, okay, 50 plus 5, that's the addition that we're used to, 55. If it was 50 degrees and it got 5 degrees colder, that would be going down to 45. And then also for negative temperatures. So we could have like negative 40 degrees and it gets 10 degrees warmer, then we're going to be at negative 30 degrees, right? Because negative 40, it's going to go up 10. We're going to be a little bit warmer. And if we're at negative 40 degrees and we get colder, we're going to go down to negative 50 degrees. Okay, so these negative problems can also be written as, the minus problems can also be written as adding a negative. Remember, those are the same thing. So minus 5 is the same as adding a negative 5, and negative 40 is the same as adding a negative 10. Okay, so subtraction is the same as adding a negative. Okay, so how can we extend this on to other numbers when maybe they don't intuitively make sense? Well, look at what happens if they're the same sign. Okay, so this one and this one, these are the same sign. So if it's positive, positive, positive gets bigger. Okay, that's the regular addition that we're used to. And look what happens if they're negative. If I combine two negatives is going to be more negative. So if they're the same sign, they're going to combine, and then they're going to take the common sign. Okay, so you put the numbers, ignore the signs, put the numbers together, combine them, and then they're going to take the common sign. So positive is positive, obviously. Negative and negative comes out negative. Okay, now opposite sign, this is usually the one that throws people every now and then. Opposite sign. Okay, so that's the middle ones in here. Okay, so if they're the opposite sign, what happens is they're kind of working against each other, right? So we've got a warm temperature and it's getting colder, or we've got a cold temperature and it's getting warmer. So what happens is the magnitude of that number, the absolute value of that number, gets smaller. Okay, so we were at 50, we go down to 45. Or we were at negative 40, we go to negative 30. So what you do is you find the difference of the two numbers, ignore the signs, find the difference of the two numbers, and then what happens is the larger number is going to dominate. So if we were at positive 50, this little negative 5 isn't going to send us into the negative numbers. We're at positive 50, we're going to stay positive 45. Or if we're at negative 40, 10 degrees isn't going to get us out of the negatives. We're still going to be negative. Okay, so you find the difference. Okay, and to do the difference, we always do the bigger number minus the smaller number. Find the difference and take the sign of the larger number. Okay, and by larger, I hope you understand that I mean the bigger magnitude number, like the bigger absolute value, not necessarily greater than, less than, but whichever number by itself would be bigger. Okay, so let's look at a few examples. Let's say that we have negative 60 plus 12. Okay, negative 60 plus 12. They're opposite signs, okay, but I can't do 12 minus 60. I can't stack it and do it that way. I know that I need to find the difference, so ignore the signs. Come over to the side and find the difference. Okay, we always have to do bigger number minus smaller number. So we're going to do that, and we're going to get 48. Okay, so the difference is 48, and it's going to have to come out negative. Okay, so like I owe my friend $60, I give them $12 now, I still owe them $48. Okay, so whatever way you can think of it to help it make sense. What if we have like 15 minus 32? Okay, 15 minus 32. Well, you come over to the side and you try to do 15 minus 32, that doesn't work, right? Because we have to do bigger minus smaller. So back that up. Okay, so we ignore the signs. We do the bigger number minus the smaller number. Okay, 12 minus 5 is 7. We get 17. Okay, so the difference is 17, and it's going to have to come out negative. Okay, so negative 17. What if we have negative 8 minus 4? Okay, negative 8 minus 4, that's the same as negative 8 and negative 4. Okay, so they're the same sign. We're going to combine them to get 12. And since they're both negative, that's going to come out negative. So like I owe somebody $8 and then I owe them 4 more. I owe them $12 now. Okay, so hopefully that helps so we don't make those little common mistakes. All right, let's move on to multiplication and division. I think this one's a little bit easier because you just have to decide the sign. Oops. Multiplication and division. So if they're the same sign, it comes out positive. And if they're opposite sign, it comes out negative. Okay, so the math for this one doesn't change, fortunately. You just have to decide positive or negative. Okay, now one result of this is that if you're multiplying more than one thing, okay, so let's say we're multiplying a whole bunch of numbers together, if there are an even number of negatives, okay, even number of negatives are going to pair up in this whole same sign thing. Okay, so pairs of negatives, negative times negative comes out positive. So if I have an even number of negatives, I'm going to pair them all up, and this is going to come out positive. Okay, so if there's an even number of negatives in these numbers, it's going to come out positive. If there's an odd number of negatives, my pen's being a little weird here. Okay, if there's an odd number of negatives, all of them are going to pair up, except you're going to have one odd one left over. You're going to have one negative left over. That's going to make the whole thing negative. Okay, so for example, let's say we've got negative 2 times 3 times negative 1 times negative 5. Okay, so let's look at the signs first. I've got negative times negative times negative. That's an odd number of negatives. Okay, so when I multiply the first two negatives together, this part's going to come out positive, but then when I multiply by a negative again, that's going to come out negative. Okay, so odd number of negatives is going to come out negative. And then I just have to multiply the numbers. So 2 times 3 is 6, times 1 is still 6, times 5 is 30. Okay, so that helps you with some more complicated numbers. You can figure out the signs separately from the multiplication or division.